The morning sun spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Mara's palatial home, casting golden streaks across marble floors that gleamed like they'd never been touched. The house was a masterpiece: vaulted ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and art curated from Remy's global travels. But to Mara, it was a cage, beautiful and cold. She stood in the kitchen, her reflection faint in the polished stainless steel of the coffee machine, her hands moving mechanically to pour her morning brew. The silence was deafening, broken only by the soft hum of the machine and the distant chirp of birds outside. Mara, 38, was striking in a way that didn't demand attention but earned it quietly. Her chestnut hair was pulled into a loose bun, strands framing a face that held both warmth and weariness. Her eyes, a deep hazel, carried stories she no longer told. Once, she'd been Remy's partner in every sense, brainstorming late into the night, sketching business plans on napkins, dreaming up the empire that became Remy's hotel chain, Pinnacle Resorts. Now, she was a ghost in his world, uninvited to board meetings, unacknowledged at galas, her name absent from the company's glossy brochures. She sipped her coffee, the bitterness mirroring her mood, and glanced at the tablet on the counter. A news alert popped up: Pinnacle Resorts to host annual gala, CEO Mara Adeyemi to announce expansion plans. Her lips pressed into a thin line. No mention of her. No mention of the woman who'd co-designed the guest experience model that made Pinnacle a household name. She set the mug down harder than intended, the clink echoing in the empty kitchen. The doorbell chimed, a rare sound in her isolated routine. Mara smoothed her silk blouse and opened the door to find a courier, barely glancing up from his clipboard. "Package for Mrs. Adeyemi," he mumbled, thrusting a sleek envelope into her hands. She signed, her fingers brushing the embossed logo of Pinnacle Resorts. Her heart sank. Another impersonal delivery. Inside, she slit open the envelope, revealing a single card, an invitation to the gala. Not handwritten. Not even addressed to her specifically. Just, Mrs. Adeyemi, guest. Her throat tightened. She'd attended every gala for the first decade of their marriage, her arm linked with Remy's, her laughter mingling with his. Now, she was an afterthought. Mara sank onto the velvet sofa, the invitation trembling in her hands. She closed her eyes, remembering the early days, Remy's promises, their shared dreams, the way he'd looked at her like she was the only person in the room. Somewhere along the way, she'd faded. Not because she'd changed, but because he'd stopped seeing her. "Enough," she whispered to the empty room, her voice barely audible but firm. She didn't know what she meant yet, but the word felt like a spark. The cafe was a cozy haven tucked into Lagos's bustling Victoria Island, its walls lined with bookshelves and fairy lights. Mara sat across from her friend Ife, picking at a slice of carrot cake while Ife, ever the storyteller, recounted her latest adventure in Abuja. Ife's laughter was infectious, her braids bouncing as she gestured wildly. For a moment, Mara felt lighter, like the old version of herself, the one who laughed without hesitation. "Girl, you should have seen the minister's face when I called him out on his own panel," Ife said, slapping the table. "He thought he could mansplain my research to me. Me. PhD holder, thank you very much." Mara chuckled, her first real smile of the day. "You're unstoppable, Ife," says the woman who built a hotel empire from scratch. Ife shot back, raising her latte in a mock toast. "Don't think I've forgotten who you are, Mara." Mara's smile faltered. "That was a long time ago." Ife's eyes softened, but before she could respond, a sharp laugh cut through the cafe's hum. Two women sat at a nearby table, their designer bags perched like trophies. One, with a sleek bob and a voice like cut glass, leaned forward. "Did you see her at the last event? Standing there like a prop. Honestly, she's just furniture at this point." Her companion giggled, adjusting her sunglasses. "Furniture? Oh, that's perfect. Poor thing, married to Mara Adeyemi and still invisible." Mara froze, her fork hovering over the cake. The air felt heavier, the cafe's warmth turning stifling. Ife's brow furrowed, her gaze darting to the women, then back to Mara. "Mara, ignore them." But Mara's eyes were locked on the women, her heart pounding. She forced a smile, the kind she'd perfected over years of swallowing hurt. "It's fine," she said, her voice too bright. "They're just talking." "They're talking nonsense," Ife hissed, loud enough for the women to glance over. One raised an eyebrow, unapologetic, before resuming her conversation. Mara's hands trembled as she reached for her water glass. "Furniture." The word lodged in her chest, sharp and cold. She wanted to stand, to say something, to prove them wrong. But her legs felt leaden, her voice trapped. She was used to being overlooked, but to be mocked so openly, so casually, it was a new kind of wound. Ife leaned forward, her voice low and fierce. "Mara, you are not what they say. You're Mara freaking Adeyemi. You built Pinnacle's soul. Don't let two bored gossips make you forget that." Mara nodded, but her eyes stung. She excused herself to the restroom, needing a moment to breathe. In the mirror, she saw a woman she barely recognized, polished, poised, but hollow. The word furniture echoed in her mind, and something inside her snapped. Not in anger, but in resolve. She splashed water on her face, straightened her shoulders, and whispered, "I'm not furniture." It wasn't a declaration yet, just a seed. Back at home, Mara sat at her desk, the gala invitation mocking her from its perch on the mahogany surface. The automated email had arrived later that day, a generic template from Pinnacle's PR team. "You are cordially invited to the Pinnacle Resort's annual gala. Kindly RSVP by." No personal note. No mention of her role as Remy's wife, let alone her contributions to the company. It was as if she were a distant acquaintance, not the woman who'd once been Remy's right hand. She clicked reply, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Part of her wanted to decline, to stay home with a book and a glass of wine, safe from the scrutiny of Remy's world. But another part, the part that had stirred in the cafe, urged her to go. Not for Remy, but for herself. Her phone buzzed, and Ife's name flashed on the screen. Mara answered, bracing for another pep talk. "You got the invite, right?" Ife asked without preamble. "Please tell me you're going." Mara sighed. "It's not even from Remy. It's a mass email, Ife. I'm probably on a default guest list." "So what?" Ife's voice was sharp. "You're his wife. You're Mara Adeyemi. You don't need a handwritten invite to walk into a room you helped build." Mara glanced at the invitation again, her jaw tightening. "I don't know if I can face them. Not after." She trailed off, the word furniture hanging unspoken between them. Ife's tone softened. "Listen, Mara. You don't have to prove anything to those vipers. But you owe it to yourself to show up. Remind them who you are." Mara closed her eyes, picturing the gala, glittering chandeliers, clinking glasses, Remy's charming smile as he worked the room. She'd always been at his side, her presence a quiet strength. Now, she'd be alone, an outsider in her own story. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll go. That's my girl." Ife hooped. "And don't you dare wear that beige dress from last year. We're burning that thing." Mara laughed despite herself, a spark of warmth cutting through her doubt. She hung up, her gaze settling on the invitation. For the first time in years, she felt a flicker of defiance. She wouldn't just attend. She'd make them see her. The banquet venue was a vision of opulence, its grand ballroom draped in gold and ivory, with crystal chandeliers casting prisms across the polished floor. Mara arrived early for the seating preview, a habit from her days as Remy's partner in planning these events. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair swept back, blending into the background as she always did. The staff bustled around her, adjusting table settings and testing microphones, barely noticing her presence. She approached the seating chart, a sleek digital display near the entrance. Her name wasn't at the CEO's table, where Remy would sit with board members and VIPs. She scanned further, her stomach twisting as she found it. Mara Adeyemi, table 12. The back of the room, near the service doors, where the least important guests were relegated. A young event coordinator, her badge reading Tola, approached with a clipboard. "Mrs. Adeyemi, your name tag is ready." She handed Mara a small card, her smile professional but distant. Mara glanced at the tag, expecting her name in elegant script. Instead, her breath caught. Reserved. Furniture. The word stared back at her, bold and cruel, a deliberate jab. Her fingers tightened around the card, the edges biting into her palm. "Is something wrong?" Tola asked, her tone more curious than concerned. Mara's mind raced. She could demand an explanation, call out the insult, make a scene. But the room was filling with early arrivals. Executives, influencers, Remy's inner circle. All eyes would be on her, judging, whispering. She forced a smile, her voice steady. "No, everything's fine. Thank you." Tola nodded and moved on, leaving Mara alone with the card. She slipped it into her purse, her heart pounding. Furniture. The word wasn't just a joke, it was a message. Someone wanted her to feel small, to stay in her place. She walked to table 12, her heels clicking softly on the marble. The table was tucked behind a pillar, half hidden from the stage. She sat, testing the view. Remy's table was a distant blur, the spotlight reserved for him and his entourage. She imagined the gala unfolding, her sitting here unseen while the room toasted her husband's success. A voice interrupted her thoughts. "Mrs. Adeyemi?" It was Mara, Remy's new assistant, her red lipstick sharp against her flawless skin. Rumors swirled about her closeness to Remy, but Mara had never confronted them. Amara's smile was saccharine, her eyes glinting with something colder. "I didn't expect to see you here so early. Checking your seat." Mara met her gaze, her voice calm but edged. "Just making sure everything's in order. You know how these events can be." Amara's smile widened, almost mocking. "Oh, absolutely. We wouldn't want you to feel out of place." She lingered a moment, then sauntered off, her laughter trailing behind her. Mara's hands clenched in her lap. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. But as she stood, slipping the furniture card deeper into her purse, a fire kindled inside her. This wasn't just about a seat. It was about her life. Back home, Mara stood in her walk-in closet, the furniture card propped against her vanity mirror. The closet was a shrine to her past. Gowns from galas where she'd shone, suits from board meetings where her ideas had shaped Pinnacle's future. Now, most hung unworn, relics of a woman she'd buried. She faced the full-length mirror, her reflection stark under the soft lighting. Her navy dress was elegant but safe, chosen to avoid attention. She studied her face, fine lines at her eyes, a jawline still sharp but softened by years of silence. She looked like someone's wife, someone's shadow. Not Mara Adeyemi, the visionary who'd once commanded rooms. Her phone buzzed, and Ife's voice burst through the speaker. "Mara, what happened at the venue? You sounded off when you texted." Mara hesitated, then told her about the name tag. The word furniture felt heavier spoken aloud, like a confession. Ife's silence was rare, followed by a low, "Those bastards." "It's not just the card," Mara said, her voice cracking. "It's everything. I'm invisible, Ife. To Remy, to his world, to myself." Ife's tone turned fierce. "You are not invisible. You're Mara. You built half of Pinnacle. You're the reason those hotels feel like home to guests. They don't get to erase you." Mara's eyes stung, but she didn't cry. She traced the edge of the furniture card, her fingers steady. "I don't know how to come back from this." "You don't come back," Ife said. "You step forward. That gala. It's your stage. Show them who you are." After hanging up, Mara turned back to the mirror. She slipped off the navy dress, letting it pool on the floor. She reached for a scarlet gown, one she'd bought years ago but never worn, too bold, too commanding. She held it against her body, the fabric catching the light like fire. Her reflection shifted, a glimpse of the woman she'd been. Not gone, just waiting. She hung the gown carefully, a promise to herself. The gala was days away. She had time, not to change who she was, but to remind the world. Mara picked up the furniture card and tore it in half, the sound sharp in the quiet room. She didn't need to keep it. The word was seared into her memory, but so was her resolve. She wasn't furniture. She was the foundation. The Lego sunset painted the sky in hues of amber and violet, casting a warm glow through the windows of Mara's living room. She sat on the plush cream sofa, the torn furniture name tag still on her coffee table, a silent reminder of her resolve. The doorbell chimed, pulling her from her thoughts. She opened the door to find Tommy, her longtime friend and stylist, standing there with a suitcase and a grin that could light up the city. Tommy was a force of nature, tall, with a cascade of braided hair adorned with gold beads, and eyes that sparkled with mischief and wisdom. She'd been abroad for 2 years, styling celebrities in Paris, but her presence felt like a homecoming. Mara Adeyemi, you gorgeous soul, why didn't you tell me things had gotten this bad? Tommy said, enveloping Mara in a hug that smelled of jasmine and confidence. Mara laughed, the sound foreign in her quiet house. I didn't want to bother you. You've been living your dream. Tommy pulled back, her hands on Mara's shoulders, her gaze piercing. Bother me? Girl, your family. Ife called me, told me about the cafe, the invitation, that vile name tag. Furniture? Oh, they've messed with the wrong queen. They settled on the sofa, Tommy kicking off her heels and tucking her legs under her. Mara recounted the past weeks, the whispers, the automated invite, the cruel label at the banquet venue. Her voice wavered, but her eyes were dry, her anger a slow-burning ember. Tommy listened, her expression shifting from outrage to determination. Listen to me, Tommy said, leaning forward, her voice low and fierce. You're not just Remy's wife. You're Mara. You co-created Pinnacle. You designed the guest experience that made those hotels iconic. They don't get to reduce you to a prop. Mara's fingers traced the edge of the torn name tag. I know, but I've been invisible for so long. I don't even know how to step back into that room. Tommy's smile was wicked. That's where I come in. We're not just going to get you to that gala. We're going to make them choke on their words. You're walking in there like the queen you are, and I'm styling you to slay. Mara's heart quickened, a mix of fear and excitement. What if they laugh? What if Remy? Let them laugh, Tommy interrupted, her voice a velvet blade. Let Remy squirm. You're not doing this for them. You're doing it for you. Now, show me that closet. We've got work to do. They spent the evening sipping wine and rifling through Mara's wardrobe, Tommy pulling out pieces Mara had forgotten she owned. Each dress, each accessory, was a step toward reclaiming the woman she'd buried. Tommy's energy was infectious, her laughter a lifeline. By the time they collapsed on the couch, Mara felt a spark she hadn't felt in years. The gala was no longer a battlefield, it was her stage. Tommy's studio was a vibrant chaos of fabric swatches, mood boards, and sketches pinned to the walls. The space buzzed with creativity, a stark contrast to Mara's sterile home. Mara stood on a small platform, surrounded by mirrors, as Tommy circled her like a general planning a siege. Bolts of silk and chiffon lay scattered across a table, but Tommy's focus was on a single gown, a deep crimson masterpiece with a fitted bodice and a flowing train that shimmered like liquid fire. This, Tommy said, holding up the gown, is your armor. It's bold, it's regal, and it's you. Mara hesitated, her fingers brushing the fabric. It's a lot. I've always worn neutrals. Won't this draw too much attention? Tommy arched an eyebrow, her hands on her hips. Mara, that's the point. You've been hiding in beige for too long. This dress doesn't ask for attention. It commands it. Like you used to. Mara's mind flashed to the early days of Pinnacle, when she'd pitched ideas to investors with unshakable confidence, her voice filling boardrooms. She'd worn bold colors then, unafraid to stand out. Somewhere along the way, she'd dimmed herself to fit Remy's spotlight. Tommy softened, stepping closer. You're not furniture, Mara. You're the foundation. This gown, this moment, it's about reminding them, and yourself, who you are. Mara nodded, stepping into the dressing room. The gown hugged her curves, the crimson amplifying her warm undertones. When she emerged, Tommy gasped, clapping her hands. Yes. Look at you. That's Mara Adeyemi, the woman who built an empire. The mirrors reflected a stranger, tall, poised, her hazel eyes fierce. Tommy worked her magic, styling Mara's hair into a sleek updo with soft curls framing her face, and applying makeup that enhanced her natural glow. The transformation wasn't just physical. It was a rebirth. Mara stood straighter, her shoulders back, her chin lifted. They sat for a break, sipping sparkling water as Tommy adjusted the gown's hem. "You nervous?" Tommy asked, her tone gentle. "Terrified," Mara admitted, her voice steady despite the admission. "But not of them. I'm scared of feeling like myself again. What if I can't hold on to it?" Tommy set down her pins, her eyes locking with Mara's. "You don't have to hold on to it. It's already in you. This gown, this night, it's just a reminder. You're not stepping into a new role. You're stepping back into your own." Mara smiled, a quiet strength settling in her chest. The gala was tomorrow. She wasn't ready, not completely, but she was resolute. The woman in the mirror wasn't a shadow anymore. She was fire. The Pinnacle Resort's gala was a spectacle, the ballroom transformed into a gilded wonderland. Chandeliers glittered like constellations, and the air hummed with the clink of champagne flutes and the murmur of Lagos's elite. Mara stood just outside the entrance, her crimson gown catching the light, her heart a steady drumbeat. Tommy had slipped away to work her behind-the-scenes magic, leaving Mara to face the moment alone. She took a deep breath, her fingers brushing the diamond pendant at her throat, a gift from Remy in their early years, now a talisman of her own strength. The doorman nodded, swinging open the double doors. Mara stepped forward, her heels clicking on the marble, and the room shifted. It wasn't a dramatic pause, not like in the movies. It was subtler, more visceral, a ripple of silence spreading from the entrance. Conversations faltered. Heads turned. A waiter froze mid-step, nearly spilling a tray of canapés. Mara didn't rush. She walked with deliberate grace, her gown trailing behind her like a royal mantle. Her eyes scanned the room, not seeking approval but claiming space. She passed table 12, the back corner seat she'd been assigned, and kept walking. Whispers followed her, a soft buzz of curiosity and shock. She approached a table near the front, where board executives mingled, and slid into an empty chair. The move was bold, unspoken, and electric. A woman in a sequined dress stared, her wineglass halfway to her lips. A man in a tuxedo raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Mara settled into the chair, her posture regal, her expression serene. She didn't belong at table 12. She belonged here, among the power players, where she'd always belonged. The room resumed its hum, but the energy had shifted. Eyes lingered on her, some admiring, some wary. She was no longer invisible. A young woman leaned toward her, her voice low. "I love your dress. Who are you with?" Mara smiled, her voice calm but resonant. "I'm Mara Adeyemi. I'm with myself." The woman blinked, then grinned, clearly charmed. "Well, you're stealing the show already." Mara's smile deepened, but her eyes caught movement across the room. Remy stood near the stage, mid-conversation, his tailored suit impeccable. He hadn't seen her yet, but she knew he would. And when he did, she'd be ready. The gala pulsed with energy, the band's jazz notes weaving through laughter and clinking glasses. Mara sipped her champagne, her senses sharp, aware of every glance in her direction. She'd become a focal point, a mystery in crimson that the room couldn't ignore. But not everyone was pleased. Amara, Remy's assistant and rumored lover, glided through the crowd, her emerald dress hugging her frame, her red lipstick a slash of confidence. She stopped near Mara's table, her laughter loud and deliberate, drawing eyes. "Oh, look at that," Amara said to a companion, her voice carrying. "Vintage pity must be in season." "Who knew?" Her companion, a sleek-haired man in a pinstripe suit, chuckled, glancing at Mara. The jab was unmistakable, a public taunt meant to sting. Whispers rippled outward, some guests smirking, others shifting uncomfortably. Mara's grip tightened on her glass, but her face remained composed, her eyes locked on Amara. She could respond, could call out the insult, but she knew better. Amara wanted a reaction, a crack in her armor. Mara wouldn't give her the satisfaction. Instead, she tilted her head, her smile faint but unshaken, and turned back to the woman beside her, resuming their conversation about sustainable tourism. Amara's smirk faltered, her eyes narrowing. She hadn't expected silence. She tossed her hair and moved on, but the room's attention lingered on Mara. Her poise was a quiet rebellion, more powerful than any retort. Guests began approaching her table, drawn by her grace. A tech mogul asked her opinion on luxury branding. A fashion editor complimented her gown, asking for her stylist's name. Mara answered each with warmth and wit, her voice steady, her knowledge sharp. She wasn't just Remy's wife tonight, she was Mara Adeyemi, a force in her own right. Amara's taunt had backfired, turning Mara into the evening's enigma. Across the room, Remy finally noticed her. His eyes widened, his glass pausing mid-air. Mara met his gaze, her expression unreadable. She raised her champagne flute in a subtle toast, not to him but to herself. Amara's smirk had been a spark, but Mara was the flame. The gala reached its peak, the crowd buzzing as Remy took the stage for his keynote. He was magnetic, his deep voice weaving tales of Pinnacle's growth, his smile disarming. But tonight, his usual polish faltered. Mid-sentence, his eyes found Mara, seated among the executives, her crimson gown a beacon. He stumbled over a word, a rare misstep, and cleared his throat. Mara didn't flinch. She sat with quiet dignity, her hands folded, her gaze steady. The board members at her table exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of surprise and respect. One, a silver-haired woman named Mrs. Okoye, leaned toward her. "You're Mara Adeyemi, aren't you? I remember your work on Pinnacle's early guest models." "Brilliant." Mara smiled, her voice warm. "Thank you. It's been a while, but I'm still passionate about the vision." Mrs. Okoye nodded, her eyes sharp. "We could use that passion now. The rebrand's been uninspired." Their conversation was brief but electric, a reminder of Mara's expertise. Other executives joined in, drawn by her insights on guest retention and sustainability. She spoke with ease, her ideas flowing like they'd never stopped. The room was watching, not just Remy, but everyone. On stage, Remy recovered, but his glances toward Mara betrayed his unease. She wasn't the silent wife he'd grown used to. She was a presence, a challenge. The crowd applauded his speech, but the whispers were about her. "Who's the woman in red? Isn't she Remy's wife? She's different tonight." Mara felt the weight of their eyes, but it didn't crush her. It fueled her. She'd walked into this room expecting to be mocked, but she'd turned their gaze into awe. Tommy, watching from the sidelines, caught her eye and winked, a silent, "I told you so." As Remy stepped off the stage, Mara stood, excusing herself from the table. She moved toward the bar, her gown shimmering, every step deliberate. The night wasn't over, but she'd already won. The room saw her now, not as furniture, but as the foundation. The Pinnacle Resorts Gala was at its zenith, the ballroom a glittering sea of elegance and ambition. The chandeliers cast prismatic light across tables laden with crystal and orchids, while the jazz band's sultry notes wove through the hum of conversation. Mara sat at the executives' table, her crimson gown a stark contrast to the muted tones around her. She was no longer a shadow, she was a beacon, her presence drawing eyes like moths to flame. The evening's formal toasts began, with Remy at the podium, his charisma commanding the room. He raised his glass, his voice smooth as velvet. "To strong partnerships, to Pinnacle's future, and to those who make it possible." The crowd murmured agreement, glasses glinting as they lifted in unison. Mara's fingers curled around her champagne flute, her heart steady but her mind racing. This was her moment, not to confront, but to claim. She stood, her movement fluid, deliberate, and raised her glass higher than the rest. The gesture was subtle but unmistakable, her eyes locking briefly with Remy's before sweeping across the room. The silence was electric, a collective intake of breath as every head turned. Camera flashes erupted, phones rising like fireflies. Mara didn't speak, didn't need to. Her poise, her crimson silhouette, spoke volumes. She was no longer Mrs. Adeyemi, guest. She was Mara, a force reborn. She lowered her glass, her lips curving into a faint, confident smile, and sat, the room erupting into whispers. At a nearby table, a young influencer leaned toward her friend, her voice hushed but audible. "Who is she?" That was iconic. "Remy's wife, I think," her friend replied, scrolling her phone. "But she's trending already. Woman in red is blowing up." Mara overheard, her expression unchanged but her pulse quickening. She hadn't planned for this, but Tommy had. Her friend's strategic whispers to key guests had planted seeds, and now they were blooming. A board member, Mr. Nwosu, leaned toward her, his voice low. "That was bold, Mrs. Adeyemi. Reminds me of your early days with Pinnacle. You always had a knack for stealing the show." Mara met his gaze, her voice warm but firm. "Thank you, Mr. Nwosu. I'm just here to celebrate the company's success. It's been a part of me for a long time." He nodded, intrigued, and raised his glass to her. "To new beginnings, then." Mara clinked her glass against his, her smile deepening. The cameras kept flashing, the whispers grew louder, and across the room, Remy's jaw tightened. Mara didn't look at him. She didn't need to. The room was hers. As the toasts faded and the band struck up a lively tune, the gala shifted into a dance of networking and power plays. Mara remained at the executives' table, fielding questions with grace, her knowledge of Pinnacle's operations surprising those who'd forgotten her role. But the real work was happening in the shadows, orchestrated by Tommy. Tommy moved through the crowd like a phantom, her gold-beaded braids catching the light as she slipped business cards into the hands of key players. Board members, investors, media insiders. The cards were simple but striking. Mara Adeyemi, consultant and co-founder, Pinnacle Resorts. Below, a tagline, "Building experiences, shaping futures." Tommy had printed them days ago, anticipating this night. She approached a journalist from Lagos Pulse, a woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for breaking stories. "You saw the woman in red?" Tommy said, her voice casual but deliberate. "That's Mara Adeyemi. She designed Pinnacle's guest experience model, everything from the welcome desks to the loyalty program. She's the reason those hotels feel like home." The journalist's eyebrows rose as she pocketed the card. "Remy's wife? I thought she was just decorative." Tommy's smile was razor-sharp. "Oh, she's the foundation. Always has been. You might want to dig into that." Meanwhile, Mara sensed the shift in the room. Guests approached her, their curiosity piqued. A young entrepreneur, Chika, sat beside her, her enthusiasm infectious. "Mrs. Adeyemi, I studied Pinnacle's service model in business school. Did you really create the guest-first framework?" Mara nodded, her voice warm. "I did, with Remy, in the early days. We wanted every guest to feel seen, valued. It's still the heart of Pinnacle." Chika's eyes widened. "That's incredible. Why don't people know your name?" Mara's smile was wistful but unbitter. "Sometimes, the work speaks louder than the name. But I'm here now." Chika grinned, snapping a selfie with Mara. "This is going on my story. You're an inspiration." As Chika posted, Tommy slipped back to Mara's side, her mission complete. "The cards are out," she whispered, her eyes gleaming. "By tomorrow, they'll know exactly who you are." Mara squeezed her hand, gratitude unspoken. The room buzzed with new energy, the narrative shifting. Mara wasn't just a guest, she was a co-founder, a visionary, a name to remember. And the night was far from over. The gala's energy softened as dessert was served, the crowd settling into intimate conversations. Mara's table had become a hub, executives and influencers drawn to her quiet magnetism. She spoke with ease, her insights on branding and guest retention sparking nods and scribbled notes. But the night's turning point came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Okoye, the silver-haired board member, excused herself from her table and approached Mara. Her presence was commanding, her tailored suit as sharp as her reputation. She gestured to an empty chair. "May I?" Mara nodded, her curiosity piqued. "Of course, Mrs. Okoye." The older woman sat, her eyes assessing but warm. "I've been watching you tonight, Mara. You're not what I expected." Mara tilted her head, her voice steady. "And what did you expect?" Mrs. Okoye smiled, a rare crack in her stoic demeanor. "Someone content to fade. But you're no wallflower. I remember your work on Pinnacle's early days. The service model, the training programs, those were yours, weren't they?" Mara's heart quickened, but she kept her composure. "Yes. I believed in creating experiences, not just transactions." Mrs. Okoye leaned closer, her voice dropping. "We're rebranding next quarter, and it's a mess. The consultants are recycling tired ideas. I think you could do better." The offer hung in the air, bold and unexpected. Mara's mind raced. This wasn't just a compliment. It was an invitation back to the table she'd been excluded from. She met Mrs. Okoye's gaze, her voice firm. "I'd be interested, but only if it's a real seat. I don't do symbolic gestures." Mrs. Okoye's smile widened, respect flashing in her eyes. "Oh, it's real. Come to my office Monday. We'll talk specifics." They exchanged cards, the moment sealed with a handshake. Around them, executives watched, their whispers shifting from curiosity to intrigue. Mara's return wasn't just personal, it was professional, a reclaiming of her legacy. As Mrs. Okoye returned to her table, Chika leaned over, her voice a stage whisper. "Did she just recruit you? That's huge." Mara laughed softly, her confidence growing. "Let's just say I'm back in the game." The band played on, but the real music was in Mara's heart, a symphony of purpose, rising. The gala's final hour was a blur of dancing and deals, but tension simmered beneath the surface. Mara stood near the bar, sipping sparkling water, when Remy approached. His tailored suit was impeccable, but his eyes were stormy, his smile tight. The crowd parted subtly, sensing the weight of the moment. "Mara," he said, his voice low, controlled. "Can we talk?" She turned, her expression serene but her gaze sharp. "Of course, Remy." He gestured to a quieter corner, away from prying eyes. The room watched, phones discreetly raised, capturing the drama. Remy's jaw clenched as he spoke. "What are you doing?" "This spectacle. The dress, the toast, sitting with the board. You're making a scene." Mara's smile was calm, cutting. "A scene? I'm here as your wife, as a co-founder of Pinnacle. I'm not making a scene, Remy. I'm taking my place." His eyes flashed, a mix of anger and unease. "Your place? You've been absent for years. Now you waltz in like you own the room." Mara's voice dropped, each word deliberate. "I've never been absent. You stopped seeing me. But I built this company with you. I belong here, whether you like it or not." The words landed like a slap, and Remy flinched. Around them, the room's hum faltered, guests catching fragments of the exchange. Mara watched from a distance, her smirk gone, her posture rigid. Mara didn't glance her way, she didn't need to. Remy ran a hand through his hair, his voice softer but strained. "This isn't the time or place, Mara. We'll talk at home." "No," she said, her tone final. "We're done talking on your terms. I'm here because I choose to be. Deal with it." She turned, walking back to the bar, her gown shimmering under the lights. The crowd parted, their whispers a chorus of awe and speculation. Remy stood frozen, his charm unraveling. Mara didn't look back. She'd said what needed saying, and the room had heard. By the next morning, Lagos was ablaze with Mara's story. Social media platforms buzzed with hashtags. #WomanInRed, #Mara Adeyemi, #Pinnacle Gala. Clips of her toast, her confrontation with Remy, and her poised exchanges with executives flooded timelines. Influencers posted tributes, calling her the comeback queen. Business blogs speculated about her return to Pinnacle's leadership. Mara sat in her kitchen, the morning sun filtering through the windows, her phone vibrating with notifications. Tommy lounged across from her, scrolling through posts with a triumphant grin. "Told you, Mara. You didn't just walk into that gala. You set it on fire." Mara sipped her coffee, her expression a mix of disbelief and pride. "I didn't expect this. I just wanted to be seen." "And you were," Tommy said, holding up her phone. "Listen to this." Mara Adeyemi redefined elegance and power at the Pinnacle Gala. A reminder that silence isn't absence, it's strength. That's from Vogue Africa. Mara laughed, a sound of genuine joy. "Vogue? Really?" "Really," Tommy said, her eyes softening. "You did this, Mara. You reminded them who you are, and now the world's listening." Ife's call came next, her voice crackling with excitement. "Mara, you're a legend. My timeline's nothing but you. People are calling you an icon for overlooked women everywhere." Mara's throat tightened, not with sadness but with purpose. "I didn't plan to be a symbol, Ife. I just couldn't stay silent anymore." "And that's why they love you," Ife said. "You're real. Now, what's next?" Mara glanced at Mrs. Okoye's card on the counter, her resolve hardening. "Next, I step back into the game. For real." As she hung up, a new post caught her eye, a viral thread detailing her contributions to Pinnacle, dug up by a business student who'd attended the gala. The comments were a flood of support. "She's the heart of Pinnacle." "Remy who? Mara's the star. Give her the CEO seat." Mara set her phone down, her heart full. The world had seen her, not as furniture, but as the foundation. And she was just getting started. The morning after the gala, Lagos hummed with Mara's name. Her crimson-clad toast and poised defiance had ignited social media, but the real shift was happening behind closed doors. In the sleek, glass-walled boardroom of Pinnacle Resort's headquarters, the air was thick with anticipation. The board members, a mix of seasoned tycoons and sharp-eyed strategists, gathered around a mahogany table, their tablets open to reports, and to trending posts about Mara Adeyemi. Mrs. Okoye, the silver-haired board member who'd invited Mara to her table, stood at the head of the room, her presence commanding. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice cutting through the murmurs, "we're here to discuss the rebrand. But first, we need to address the elephant in the room, Mara Adeyemi." A murmur rippled through the group. Mr. Nwosu, a portly man with a penchant for bluntness, leaned forward. "She stole the show last night. I had no idea she was that Mara, the one who built our guest model. Why's she been out of the picture?" Mrs. Okoye's lips twitched, a flicker of amusement. "That's a question for our CEO, but it's irrelevant now. Mara's back, and she's a force. I've invited her to consult on the rebrand. Any objections?" A younger board member, Ms. Ikanam, raised a hand, her brow furrowed. "With respect, she's been absent for years. Can she deliver? The rebrand's critical. We're bleeding market share to competitors." Mrs. Okoye's gaze was steely. Mara's absence wasn't her choice. Her work laid Pinnacle's foundation. Last night, she proved she's still sharp. "I say we give her a seat, not symbolic, but real." The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling. Remy, seated at the far end, shifted uncomfortably. His tie was slightly askew, a rare crack in his polished facade. "Mara's talented," he said, his voice measured. "But this is sudden. We have consultants already." Mrs. Okoye turned to him, her tone cool. "Consultants who've given us recycled ideas. Mara's vision made us unique. I'm not asking for a favor, Remy. I'm proposing a strategy." A tense pause followed. Mr. Nwosu broke it, chuckling. "She walked into that gala like she owned it. If she can do that to a room, imagine what she can do for our brand." "I'm in." Ms. Ikanam nodded slowly. "If she can deliver, I'm open. But I want specifics, her terms, her role." Mrs. Okoye smiled, a rare warmth in her eyes. She's meeting me tomorrow. She's already set terms. No tokenism, full authority on her scope. I suggest we prepare to welcome her. Remy's jaw tightened, but he nodded, his silence louder than words. The board moved on, but the decision was clear. Mara was no longer a footnote. She was a player, and the game had changed. 2 evenings later, Mara hosted a private dinner at her home, a strategic move to cement her return. The dining room was transformed. Candlelight flickered across a long table set with minimalist elegance, the air scented with jasmine and roasted spices. Her guests were a curated mix. Mrs. Okoye, Mr. Nwosu, Chika, the young entrepreneur from the gala, and a media mogul named Tund, whose platform could amplify Pinnacle's rebrand. Mara stood at the head of the table, her emerald green dress a nod to understated power. Her hair was swept into a low chignon, her hazel eyes bright with purpose. She raised a glass of sparkling wine, her voice warm but commanding. Thank you for joining me. Tonight's about vision, Pinnacle's past, present, and future. Let's talk. The meal was a masterclass in hospitality, each course reflecting the guest experience she'd pioneered at Pinnacle. As servers glided in with plates of jollof stuffed prawns and mango sorbet, conversation flowed. Mara steered it with ease, her knowledge of the industry razor-sharp. Tund leaned forward, his voice curious. Mara, your guest model was groundbreaking. Why'd you step back? Pinnacle's lost some of that magic. Mara's smile was measured, her tone candid. Life happened, Tund. Priorities shifted. But I never stopped believing in Pinnacle's potential. The rebrand's a chance to bring that magic back, sustainability, inclusivity, experiences that resonate. Mrs. Okoye nodded, her fork pausing. Your ideas at the gala were fresh. Tell us more about your vision. Mara leaned in, her passion igniting. Pinnacle's guests want authenticity. Eco-friendly suites, local art in every lobby, partnerships with women-led businesses. We're not just selling rooms, we're selling stories. Chika's eyes sparkled. That's brilliant. Imagine a campaign. Stay with purpose. I'd share that in a heartbeat. Mr. Nwosu chuckled. You're making our current consultants look lazy, Mara. When can you start? Mara's gaze met his, steady and confident. As soon as the board agrees to my terms. I want creative control and a team I can trust. Mrs. Okoye raised her glass. Consider it done. You've got my vote. Across the room, Mara lingered near the doorway, invited as Remy's assistant but clearly out of place. Her emerald dress, chosen to rival Mara's, only highlighted her unease. She overheard Chika's enthusiasm and Mara's command, her fingers tightening around her clutch. Mara caught her eye, offering a polite nod, no malice, just certainty. Mara looked away, her confidence crumbling. As the dinner ended, Tund pulled Mara aside. I'm running a feature on women reshaping industries. You're my lead. Say yes. Mara smiled, her voice firm. Yes, but only if it's about the work, not the drama. He grinned. Deal. The night closed with handshakes and promises. Mara's home no longer a cage but a stage. She was back, and no one could ignore her now. The fallout came swiftly, a digital storm that broke the morning after Mara's dinner. A whistleblower, rumored to be a disgruntled intern, leaked a chain of emails from Pinnacle's internal server to Lagos Pulse. The subject line was innocuous, gala seating, but the content was dynamite. Mara, Remy's assistant, had written to the event coordinator, "Put Mara at the back, table 12. Label her card, reserved. Furniture. It'll be a laugh." The coordinator's reply was hesitant. Isn't that harsh? She's the CEO's wife. Mara's response was cold. She's irrelevant. Do it. The email spread like wildfire, screenshots flooding social media with hashtags like #FurnitureGate and #JusticeForMara. By noon, Lagos Pulse published a scathing exposé, Pinnacle's cruel joke, how Mara Adeyemi was mocked. Commenters raged. Disgusting. Mara's a queen. Mara needs to go. Remy allowed this? Mara sat in her home office, Her tablet opened to the article. Tommy paced, her voice a mix of fury and triumph. "This is it, Mara. They've exposed themselves. Amara's done." Mara's expression was calm, but her eyes burned. "I didn't want it to come to this. But she made her choice." Ife called, her voice crackling with outrage. "Mara, you saw the emails? Amara's trash. And Remy's claiming he didn't know? Please." Mara sighed, her fingers tracing the edge of her coffee mug. "He might not have known about the card, Ife. But he let me fade. That's worse." Ife softened. "You're handling this like a boss. What's your next move?" Mara glanced at Mrs. Okoye's card on her desk. "I keep going. The rebrand, the board, my terms. This doesn't change my plan." Tommy grinned, holding up her phone. "The internet's got your back. Look at this. Mara Adeyemi is Pinnacle's soul. Hashtag Team Mara. You're a movement now." Mara's lips curved, a spark of pride igniting. The emails were a wound, but they were also a weapon. Amara's cruelty had backfired, and the world was watching. At Pinnacle's headquarters, Amara faced a closed-door meeting with HR. Her usual swagger was gone, her face pale as she stammered excuses. "It was a joke," she said, her voice shaking. "I didn't mean." The HR director cut her off, her tone icy. "You humiliated a co-founder. The board's furious. We'll discuss your future tomorrow." Amara left the room, her heels clicking on the marble, her world unraveling. Mara didn't know yet, but the tide had turned. The next day, Pinnacle's PR team scrambled to contain the fallout. By mid-afternoon, Remy issued a public apology, posted on the company's website and social media. The statement was polished, carefully worded. "Pinnacle Resorts deeply regrets the incident at our recent gala. The actions were unacceptable and do not reflect our values. I was unaware of the seating arrangement and extend my sincerest apologies, especially to my wife, Mara Adeyemi, for the distress caused. We are taking steps to ensure this never happens again." The apology sparked a fresh wave of reactions. Some praised Remy's accountability, others called it damage control. "Too little, too late," one commenter wrote. "Mara deserves better," said another. The hashtag Team Mara hashtag trended higher, fans posting fan art of Mara in her crimson gown, captioned, "The Foundation." Mara read the apology in her living room, the morning light soft on her face. She wore a simple white blouse, her hair loose, but her presence was as commanding as ever. Tommy sat across from her, scrolling through reactions. "He's trying to save face," Tommy said, her tone skeptical. "You buying this I didn't know act?" Mara set her tablet down, her voice steady. "It doesn't matter if he knew. He let Amara run wild. He let me become furniture in his world. That's on him." Tommy nodded, her eyes fierce. "So what do you do? Respond? Ignore it?" Mara stood, walking to the window, her gaze on the city skyline. "I don't respond. I act." She picked up her phone and opened her social media, her fingers moving with purpose. She posted a single image, the torn furniture name tag beside a new business card. Mara Adeyemi, Executive Advisor, Pinnacle Resorts. No caption, just the image. The post exploded, likes and shares climbing by the second. "Iconic," one user wrote. "She's rewriting the story," said another. Mrs. Okoye texted moments later, "Brilliant move. Board's meeting tomorrow. Your role's secure. Keep shining." Mara smiled, a quiet victory settling in her chest. She didn't need Remy's apology. She didn't need his permission. The world saw her now, not as a victim, but as a visionary. Amara's fate was sealed, and Mara's star was rising. As she set her phone down, Tommy raised her coffee mug in a mock toast. "To Mara Adeyemi, the woman who turned a cruel joke into a crown." Mara laughed, clinking her mug against Tommy's. "To the Foundation." The fallout from the leaked emails was swift and merciless. Pinnacle Resort's headquarters buzzed with whispers as staff gathered in break rooms, their phones open to the latest headlines. Pinnacle assistant fired after furniture scandal. Amara, once a fixture at Remy's side, was quietly let go, her departure announced in a curt company memo. Ms. Mara Adeyemi is no longer with Pinnacle Resorts. We are committed to fostering a respectful workplace. In the executive lounge, Mrs. Okoye sipped her tea, her silver hair catching the morning light. She sat with Mr. Nwosu, who scrolled through the news with a satisfied grunt. "About time," he said, setting his tablet down. That girl thought she could play dirty and walk away clean. Mrs. Okoye's lips curved, her voice dry. She underestimated Mara. A fatal mistake. Their conversation paused as Mara entered, her tailored navy blazer and cream trousers exuding quiet authority. Her new title, Executive Advisor, had been formalized that morning, her office already a hub of activity. She carried a tablet, her hazel eyes sharp with purpose. "Mara," Mrs. Okoye greeted, gesturing to a seat. "The board's thrilled with your rebrand proposals. And Amara's exit clears the air." Mara sat, her expression calm but resolute. I didn't want it to end this way for her. But she chose her path. Mr. Nwosu leaned forward, his tone gruff but warm. "You're too kind. She tried to bury you, and now you're running the show. Poetic, if you ask me." Mara's smile was faint but genuine. "I'm not here for revenge, Mr. Nwosu. I'm here to build something lasting." Mrs. Okoye nodded, her eyes gleaming with respect. "And you will. Your sustainability plan, local artisans, eco-suites, it's bold. Remy's on board, by the way. He knows he can't afford to lose you again." Mara's gaze flickered, a shadow crossing her face. "Remy's support is noted. But my focus is the work." As she spoke, her phone buzzed with a message from Tommy. "Amara's gone, and you're trending again. #MaraTheBoss. Dinner to celebrate." Mara typed a quick reply. "Soon. Work first." And stood, excusing herself. Amara's exit was a closed chapter, but Mara's story was just beginning. Her seat at the table was no longer a gesture, it was permanent, carved in stone. 3 months later, Mara stood in a sleek Lagos event space, its walls adorned with vibrant tapestries from local weavers. The room buzzed with journalists, influencers, and business leaders, all gathered for the launch of the Mara Adeyemi Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to empowering overlooked women in business and leadership. The stage was simple but striking, a single spotlight illuminating a banner, "Rise Unseen." Mara wore a flowing ochre gown, its intricate embroidery a nod to her Yoruba heritage. Her hair was styled in soft waves, her presence commanding yet warm. She stepped to the podium, her voice steady as she addressed the crowd. "Tonight, we celebrate women who've been called invisible, dismissed as props. This foundation is for them, for us. We're here to fund dreams, mentor leaders, and rewrite stories." The applause was thunderous, cameras flashing as attendees posted live updates. #RiseUnseen trended instantly, with influencers like Chika sharing clips, Mara Adeyemi's changing the game. This is power. Backstage, Tommy and Ife watched, their grins wide. "She's a movement," Ife whispered, her eyes misty. "I'm so proud." Tommy nudged her, her voice teasing. "Told you she'd slay. That gown. My best work yet." On stage, Mara introduced the Foundation's first initiative, microgrants for women entrepreneurs in hospitality. A young caterer, Funk, joined her, tears in her eyes as Mara handed her a grant check. "This is for your dreams," Mara said, her voice soft but resonant. "You're seen now." The crowd rose, clapping, as Funk hugged Mara, whispering, "Thank you for believing in me." After the speech, Mara mingled, fielding questions with grace. A reporter from Vogue Africa approached, her notebook open. "Mara, your stories inspired millions. How does it feel to go from furniture to this?" Mara's smile was serene, her words deliberate. "It's not about leaving furniture behind. It's about owning my foundation. Every woman here has that power to build, to rise. The reporter nodded, scribbling furiously. And Remy? Any comment on his role in this? Mara's gaze was steady, her voice firm. This is my story, not his. Let's focus on the women we're lifting up. As the event wound down, Mara stepped outside, the night air cool on her skin. Tommy joined her, handing her a glass of sparkling water. You did it, Mara. The world's watching, and they're in love. Mara's eyes shimmered, not with tears but with triumph. This is just the start. The next morning, Mara sat in her home office, sunlight streaming through the windows. Her desk was a mosaic of grant applications, rebrand drafts, and foundation plans, but a new item caught her eye, a handwritten envelope, her name in Remy's familiar scrawl. It had been slipped under her door, a quiet intrusion into her new world. She picked it up, her fingers tracing the ink. Part of her wanted to open it, to hear what he had to say after months of distance. But another part, the stronger part, knew it didn't matter. She slit the envelope, unfolding the letter, and read the first line. Mara, I've failed you in ways I can't undo. She stopped, her heart steady. The words were heavy, laced with regret, but they belonged to the past. She folded the letter, placing it in a wooden box on her shelf labeled, Before. Inside were relics of her old life, photos, mementos, the torn furniture name tag. They weren't forgotten, but they no longer held her. Tommy arrived, her energy bursting as she dropped onto the sofa. Saw the foundation launch clips. You're a rock star. Any new drama? Mara gestured to the box, her voice calm. Remy sent a letter. Tommy's eyes widened. And spill. Mara shrugged, a faint smile playing on her lips. I read the first line. That's enough. He's part of Before. I'm living in Now. Tommy clapped, her laughter bright. That's my girl. You're not just. The door's open, Mara. Let him grovel. Mara leaned back, her expression thoughtful. Maybe he'll learn something from this. But I'm not waiting for his redemption. I'm building my own. Tommy nodded, her voice soft. You already have. That foundation, your role at Pinnacle, you're rewriting the script. Mara's phone buzzed with a message from Mrs. Okoye. Foundation launch was stellar. Board's pushing for you to lead the rebrand fully. Meeting next week. Mara smiled, typing a quick reply. Ready. Let's make history. She closed the box, the letter sealed inside. The past was a chapter, not her story. She was writing a new one, and the world was reading along. A week later, Mara sat in a sleek studio, the set bathed in soft light. She was a guest on The Pulse, a leading podcast hosted by Zara Olu, a journalist known for her incisive questions and warm presence. The episode, titled From Silence to Strength, Mara Adeyemi's Rise, was live-streamed to millions. Mara wore a tailored white blazer, her hair in a sleek bun, her demeanor poised yet approachable. Zara leaned forward, her voice warm. Mara, your stories resonated globally. You were mocked, sidelined, yet you reclaimed your power. How did you find the strength? Mara's eyes softened, her voice steady. It wasn't one moment. It was years of silence, of doubting myself, until I realized I wasn't the one who needed to change. I found strength in remembering who I was, a creator, a visionary. The gala was just the spark. The chat trended instantly, viewers flooding the comments. She's so real. I feel seen. Mara's my hero. Zara's next question was gentle but pointed. The furniture label, how did that shape you? Mara paused, her gaze distant. It hurt, deeply. But it also woke me up. It forced me to see how I'd let myself fade. I turned that pain into purpose, not for revenge, but for every woman who's been overlooked. Zara nodded, her eyes glistening. Your foundation's already changing lives. What's your message to women watching? Mara leaned in, her voice fierce yet warm. You are not invisible. Your work, your voice, your dreams, they matter. Don't wait for a seat at the table. Build your own. The comments exploded. Preach, Mara. I'm crying. She gets it. Hashtag Rise Unseen Forever. After the taping, Zara pulled Mara aside, her voice low. You're changing the narrative for so many. Thank you. Mara smiled, her hand squeezing Zara's. We're all changing it, together. As she left the studio, her phone lit up with messages. Funk, the caterer, thanking her for the grant. Chica, planning a foundation event. Tommy, joking about needing a bigger trophy case. Mara laughed, her heart full. She wasn't just seen, she was heard. A year after the gala, Mara stood backstage at Pinnacle's next annual event, no longer a guest but the keynote speaker. The ballroom was grander than ever, its chandeliers sparkling, the crowd a mix of industry giants and rising stars. Mara's foundation had funded dozens of women-led businesses, and her rebrand had revitalized Pinnacle, earning global acclaim. She wore a sapphire blue gown, its clean lines accentuating her regal presence. Her speech, titled You Never Noticed, But I Built the Room, was ready, its words a blend of reflection and vision. Tommy fussed over her, adjusting a curl. You nervous? Mara's smile was calm. Not nervous. Ready. Ife joined them, her eyes bright. The room's packed. Half the crowd's here because of you. Mara nodded, her heart steady. She stepped onto the stage, the spotlight warm on her skin. The crowd hushed, their anticipation palpable. She began, her voice clear and commanding. A year ago, I was called furniture in this room. Invisible, dismissed. But I was never just a prop. I was the foundation, designing experiences, shaping dreams. You never noticed, but I built the room. The audience leaned forward, captivated, as she outlined Pinnacle's rebrand. Sustainable suites, local partnerships, a new era of hospitality. She shared stories of women her foundation had lifted, their triumphs a testament to resilience. Her words were fire, her presence undeniable. Remy sat in the front row, his expression unreadable. Mara didn't falter. This wasn't about him, it was about her legacy. As Mara concluded, her voice rang with quiet power. We all have a foundation within us. Build on it. Rise. Be seen. She stepped back, her breath steady, and the room erupted. The applause was deafening, a tidal wave of sound as the crowd rose to their feet. Executives, influencers, even Remy stood, their hands clapping, their faces a mix of awe and respect. Camera flashes lit the room. Hashtag Mara Adeyemi trending worldwide. Mara stood tall, her sapphire gown shimmering, her eyes bright with victory, not vengeance, but triumph. She scanned the crowd, seeing Funk, Chica, Mrs. Okoye, all clapping fiercely. Tommy and Ife cheered from the wings, their pride radiant. A young woman in the audience shouted, "We see you, Mara." The crowd echoed it, a chant of "We see you," rising like a hymn. Mara's throat tightened, but her smile held. She bowed slightly, a queen acknowledging her court, and walked off the stage, her heels clicking with purpose. Backstage, Tommy hugged her, laughing. You owned that room, Mara. Owned it. Ife joined, her voice choked. You built it, and now they know. Mara's eyes shimmered, her voice soft. We built it. All of us. As she stepped into the night, the Lego skyline glittering, Mara felt whole. The room that once mocked her had risen for her. She wasn't furniture. She was the foundation, and her story was eternal. I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story.